What did my wife name our son? My wife Emma gave birth to our first child on a Tuesday morning in March after 14 hours of labor. I was exhausted but overjoyed, holding this perfect little person we'd been waiting 9 months to meet. The nurses were asking for paperwork, and Emma was filling out the birth certificate forms while I focused on our baby. I was so caught up in the moment that I didn't pay attention to what she was writing until she handed the clipboard back to the nurse. I glanced at the form and saw the name she'd chosen, Connor James Walsh. I stared at it for a second, genuinely confused because we'd never discussed that name during the entire pregnancy. We'd spent hours talking about names. Michael, Daniel, Ryan, even Sebastian, but never once had Connor come up in our conversations. When I asked her about it, she just smiled and said she'd always loved that name, that it felt right when she looked at him. I figured pregnancy brain and exhaustion were making her forget our previous discussions, so I didn't want to start an argument in the hospital. But over the next few weeks at home, something felt increasingly off about her attachment to that specific name. She'd get this strange, almost distant look on her face whenever she said Connor. Not the happy glow of a new mom saying her baby's name, but something else I couldn't quite identify. When people asked about the name choice, she'd give completely different explanations every time. To my mother, she said it was Irish, and meant strong-willed. To her sister, she claimed it reminded her of her grandfather who'd passed away. To our neighbor, she said it was from a beautiful book she'd read during pregnancy. I started paying closer attention to these inconsistencies. Emma would sometimes pause before saying Connor, like she was remembering to use the right name instead of something else. And she'd gotten unusually defensive when my brother suggested we call him Connie as a cute nickname. The really weird thing was how she acted during the baptism planning with our priest. Father Martinez asked about the name's significance for the certificate, and Emma became visibly nervous. Her hands were actually shaking as she stumbled through some vague explanation about family tradition, but I knew her family history pretty well, and there were no Connors anywhere in it. I decided to check her phone one evening while she was taking a shower. I felt absolutely terrible about violating her privacy, but something was clearly wrong, and I needed to understand what was happening. I found her text messages and searched for the word Connor. What I discovered made my stomach drop completely. There were dozens of messages to a contact listed simply as Connor J, going back over 2 years. Messages that were definitely not appropriate for a married woman. Messages about missing him desperately, about dreams they'd shared together, about a love that never died. The timestamp on the very last message was from the day before our son was born. It read, "He'll carry your name even if he can never know the truth about us." I sat on our bed staring at her phone, my hands shaking as I scrolled through months of evidence that my wife had been having an emotional affair, maybe much more than emotional. The dates lined up perfectly with when she would have gotten pregnant. Emma came out of the bathroom in her robe, saw me holding her phone with the messages open, and her face went completely white. The look of pure panic in her eyes told me everything I needed to know about who our son was really named after. Emma's face crumbles before my eyes. The panic in her expression gives way to something worse, resignation. She knows she's caught, that there's no explanation that could undo what I've just discovered. It's not, she starts, then stops. Her shoulders collapse as she sinks to the edge of the bed, tears already streaming down her face. Oh God, I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm watching this scene from outside my body. My wife, still in her bathrobe, hair dripping from the shower, crying as I hold her phone with messages that have shattered everything I thought I knew about our marriage, our family, our son. It was just a mistake, she whispers, her voice breaking. Nothing happened with Connor, not physically. I swear. The name hits me like a physical blow. Connor, our son's name. The name she insisted on, that she'd never once mentioned during pregnancy. I look down at the phone again, at the messages that tell a very different story than the one she's trying to sell me now. I want to see all of them, I say, my voice unnaturally calm. Every message between you two. Emma's hands are shaking as she takes the phone from me. She scrolls back through the messages, revealing a history I never knew existed. 2 years of texts, calls, meetups disguised as work events. My stomach churns as I read through them, piecing together a timeline that overlaps with our marriage, with our decision to start a family, with her pregnancy. It started when we were going through that rough patch, she explains, her voice small. You were working so much, and we barely talked. Connor was new at the office, and he just listened. I remember that period, about 2 years ago. I'd taken on extra projects, trying to secure a promotion that would help us afford a house before starting our family. I'd thought we were on the same page, working toward the same goals. Now I wonder if anything about our marriage was real. The baby is yours, Emma says, seeing where my thoughts are headed. I swear on my life, Connor and I never slept together. It was emotional, not physical. I want to believe her, but the timing, the name, everything points to a different truth. I'll take a paternity test, she offers desperately. Right away. I know Connor James is yours. Connor James, our son, 3 days old and already caught in a web of lies. I stand up, unable to be in the same room with her anymore. I walk to our closet and pull out an overnight bag. What are you doing? Emma asks, panic rising in her voice. I need space, I tell her, throwing in some clothes without really seeing what I'm grabbing. I can't be here right now. She follows me, grabbing my arm. Please, you can't leave. He's only 3 days old. I need you here. Her voice breaks. We need you here. I look at her, really look at her, and see the exhaustion etched in her face, the fear, the desperation, and despite everything, I think about our son, Connor, asleep in his nursery. The nursery we painted together, the crib I assembled, the mobile I hung above it. I'll stay in the guest room, I concede, not for her sake, but for his. But I can't even look at you right now. Relief washes over her face, quickly replaced by shame. She nods and steps back, giving me space to pass without touching her. I grab my bag and head to the guest room at the end of the hall, as far from our bedroom as possible. I sit on the edge of the unfamiliar bed, staring at the wall, trying to process everything. The texts, the lies, the baby we brought home 3 days ago who might not be mine. I don't know how long I sit there before I hear it, the thin, high wail of our son waking up hungry. I hear Emma's footsteps rushing to the nursery, her soothing voice trying to calm him, but Connor keeps crying, his wails growing more insistent. I close my eyes, willing myself to stay put, to not rush in, and help like I have the past 2 nights. This isn't my problem anymore, except, what if he is mine? The crying continues through the night, punctuated by Emma's exhausted attempts to soothe him. Neither of us sleeps. I lie awake, listening to the sounds of my family, if they even are my family, and wondering how everything could fall apart so quickly. Morning comes with no answers, just the harsh light of day illuminating the wreckage of my marriage. I emerge from the guest room to find Emma in the kitchen, dark circles under her eyes, mechanically preparing a bottle. Connor is in his bassinet, finally quiet but fussing softly. Our eyes meet across the kitchen. There's a chasm between us now, filled with unanswered questions and betrayals I'm not sure we can overcome. Emma opens her mouth to speak, then closes it, seemingly at a loss for words. I look at the baby, at Connor, and feel a surge of conflicting emotions. Love and doubt, attachment and suspicion. His tiny features, which I'd thought resembled mine, now seem like a stranger's. Or worse, like the man in those text messages. I'll make coffee, I say finally, because it's the only normal thing I can think to do in this completely abnormal situation. Emma nods, grateful for the mundane gesture in the midst of our crisis. Thank you, she whispers. We move around each other carefully, like strangers forced to share the same small space. The silence between us speaks volumes, about trust destroyed, promises broken, and a future suddenly uncertain. Connor begins to cry again, and I watch as Emma lifts him from the bassinet, cradling him against her chest. She looks at me over his tiny head, her eyes pleading for something. Forgiveness, understanding, time. I don't know what I can give her anymore. I pour the coffee and set her mug on the counter, keeping my distance. The morning stretches before us, the first of many where we'll have to navigate this new reality. A reality where the name Connor means something entirely different than I thought, where my son might not be my son, where my wife is a stranger I thought I knew. What happens now? Emma asks quietly, bouncing Connor gently in her arms. I look at them both, at what I thought was my perfect family, and I honestly don't know. I order the paternity test kit at 2 a.m., my phone's blue light illuminating the guest bedroom, while Emma sleeps down the hall with Connor. 3 clicks, express shipping, and the secret I'm keeping feels both shameful and necessary. The kit promises results within 5 business days after the lab receives the samples. 5 days to know if my life is a lie. Morning comes with Connor's cries and Emma's exhausted movements. We orbit each other like cautious strangers, exchanging only necessary words about formula temperatures and diaper changes. I take my turn with Connor while Emma showers, studying his tiny features for any sign, any clue. His eyes are still that newborn blue-gray that could become anything. His nose is button small, undefined. I search for myself in him and find only questions. Emma's phone pings from the coffee table, then again and again. I shouldn't look. I've already invaded her privacy once, discovered enough pain to last a lifetime. But when Connor finally drifts to sleep in my arms, I gently place him in his bassinet and glance at her phone screen. 3 new messages from Connor J. My stomach drops. I expected her to block him, delete him, erase every trace of the man who might have fathered my son. Instead, she's still talking to him. I pick up the phone, knowing I shouldn't, unable to stop myself. Did you tell him yet, Emma? We need to talk about this. He deserves to know the truth about his son. I set the phone down, hands shaking. His son, the words burn into my brain. When Emma emerges from the shower, I'm sitting at the kitchen table, Connor's bassinet beside me, her phone where I found it. He's still messaging you, I say, my voice hollow. She freezes, towel still wrapped around her hair. I haven't responded, but you haven't blocked him either. She looks away. I didn't know what to do. You didn't know what to do. I repeat, the words tasting bitter. How about cutting all contact with the man you had an affair with? It's complicated, she whispers. Uncomplicate it for me. She sits across from me, her eyes red-rimmed from crying or lack of sleep or both. He wants to see Connor. The name hits differently now. Not our son's innocent name, but a reminder of betrayal. And what do you want? I want our family back, she says, tears welling. I want to fix this. There might not be anything to fix. The words come out harsher than I intended, but I can't soften them now. That afternoon, while Emma naps with Connor, I find myself in our home office, laptop open to her social media accounts. She's still logged in, and I scroll back through her photos, looking for deleted images, for gaps in the timeline. I find them in her Instagram archive pictures removed from her profile but not permanently deleted, photos from work conferences, group shots with colleagues, and there he is. Connor J. is tall, with dark hair and a confident smile. In one photo, he stands next to Emma at what looks like a company holiday party, his arm casually draped across her shoulders. In another, they're part of a group hiking trip, but they're sitting next to each other during a break, heads bent close in conversation. The timestamps create a perfect timeline, 18 months of friendship, that coincides exactly with our marriage's roughest patch and her pregnancy. I cross-referenced the dates with his profiles, finding more evidence. A check-in at a restaurant where Emma said she was meeting girlfriends. A vague post about unexpected happiness. The same weekend, Emma went to a work retreat. The digital breadcrumbs of betrayal are everywhere once I know to look for them. 3 nights later, I wake to the sound of whispers. The baby monitor on my nightstand is silent. Connor actually sleeping through for once, but there's a faint voice coming from the hallway bathroom. I slip out of bed and move silently toward the sound. Emma's voice, hushed but urgent. You can't just show up here. No, I haven't told him everything. I need more time. I push the door open. Emma startles, nearly dropping her phone, her face illuminated by its glow in the dark bathroom. Who are you talking to at 3 a.m.? I ask, though we both know the answer. I was just... Don't lie to me. Not again. She ends the call without saying goodbye. He keeps calling. I was trying to make him understand that he needs to back off. By whispering in the bathroom in the middle of the night? I didn't want to wake you. How considerate, I say. The sarcasm thick in my voice. What haven't you told me yet, Emma? What's the everything he mentioned? She sinks down onto the edge of the bathtub. He thinks he has rights to Connor. The next day, my parents visit to see their grandson. My mother cradles Connor, cooing over his tiny fingers and toes, while my father claps me on the back, proud of the continuation of our family line. I watch them with a strange detachment, wondering if they're doting over a child who shares none of their DNA. He has such unique features, my mother says, studying Connor's face. I can't quite place who he looks like in the family. My father peers over her shoulder. Maybe my grandfather? Something about the chin. I catch Emma's eyes across the room. She looks away quickly, busying herself with unnecessary tidying. Actually, I say, the words forming before I can stop them. I think he looks like his namesake. The room goes silent. My mother looks confused. I didn't know there was a Connor in either of your families? There isn't, I reply, watching Emma's hands freeze on the blanket she's folding. Emma just loved the name. After my parents leave, the paternity test kit arrives. I hide the package in my work bag, but that night, while Emma is feeding Connor, I swab the inside of his cheek and mine, seal the samples in their separate containers, and prepare them for overnight shipping. 5 days pass in tense silence. Emma tries multiple times to talk about our future, about counseling, about how we can move forward. I deflect, waiting for the only answer that matters. The results come by email on a Tuesday morning. I open it with trembling fingers, scanning past the medical jargon to the conclusion at the bottom. Based on the analysis of 16 STR loci, the alleged father is excluded as the biological father of the tested child. The probability of paternity is 0%. I print the results and place them on the kitchen table. When Emma walks in with Connor in her arms, I simply point to the paper. What's this? She asks, shifting Connor to her hip to pick up the document. Her face crumbles as she reads, realization dawning. You tested him without telling me? You tested me for 2 years without telling me, I reply, my voice eerily calm, pretending to love me while seeing him, pretending this was my child. I never slept with him, she insists, clutching Connor tighter. This test must be wrong. I laugh, a hollow sound that doesn't belong to me. The DNA doesn't lie, Emma, but you do. You've done nothing but lie. Connor begins to cry, sensing the tension. Emma bounces him gently, tears streaming down her face. Please, let me explain. Explain what? That you named our son No? His son after him? That you've been sneaking calls to him in the middle of the night? That you let me believe this child was mine? I thought he was, she whispers. I really did, but we both know it's another lie. Another in a sea of deceptions that's drowning whatever love we once had. Connor wants to see his son, I say. The words like acid on my tongue. Maybe you should call him back now. You don't have to whisper in the bathroom anymore. I place the paternity test results on the kitchen counter and watch Emma's face crumble. For a moment, I feel a twisted satisfaction seeing her finally face the truth she's been hiding. But it fades quickly, replaced by a hollow ache that spreads through my chest. We need to talk, I say, my voice steadier than I feel. And this time, I want the whole truth. No more lies, Emma. She clutches Connor to her chest, as if afraid I might take him away. Maybe part of me wants to. The baby, not my baby, stirs in her arms, making those little grunting sounds he makes before crying. Let me put him down first, she whispers, her voice breaking. Please. I nod, watching her disappear into the nursery we painted together on a weekend last fall. The pale blue walls I insisted on because it's classic for a boy. The wall decals of rockets and stars I meticulously applied, while Emma supervised from the rocking chair, her hand resting on her growing belly. Our son's room. Except he isn't our son. He isn't mine at all. When she returns, her eyes are red and swollen. She sits across from me at the kitchen table, hands trembling as she reaches for a glass of water. When did it start? I ask, cutting straight to what I need to know. Emma takes a shaky breath. The marketing conference in Chicago, 2 years ago. I remember that weekend. I'd driven her to the airport on a Thursday morning, kissed her goodbye at security. She'd called me each night, telling me about the sessions she'd attended, the networking events. All lies. He was a speaker, she continues, eyes fixed on the table. His presentation was brilliant, and afterward, I introduced myself. We ended up having drinks with some other attendees. It felt professional at first, and then we kept in touch. Emails about marketing strategies, then texts. It evolved slowly. I didn't even realize what was happening until we were already in too deep. Did you sleep with him? The question burns my throat. Emma's eyes finally meet mine. Yes, her voice is barely audible. Once, the night before I found out I was pregnant. The timeline fits perfectly. The weekend she went to that work retreat in Boston, the one where her phone kept going to voicemail when I called. You knew Connor could be his. You've known all along. She nods, tears streaming down her face. I hoped the baby was yours. The timing could have worked either way. But then what? Connor found out I was pregnant. He started putting pressure on me, saying if the baby was his, he had a right to be involved. I panicked. She wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. I told him we needed to wait, that I couldn't destroy my marriage on a possibility. So you just decided to let me believe the child was mine? My voice rises despite my efforts to stay calm. To name our son, his son after him? That wasn't my idea, Emma says quickly. Connor threatened to tell you everything unless I gave the baby his name. He said it was the least I could do if I was going to keep him from his child. And you thought that would satisfy him? The absurdity of it makes me laugh, a harsh sound that causes Emma to flinch. I thought it would buy me time to figure things out. I never expected him to keep pushing, to want more. The baby monitor crackles with Connor's fussing. Emma glances toward it, but makes no move to get up. I want to meet him, I say suddenly, the words surprising even me. What? No, that's not. I want to look this man in the eye, Emma. The man who's been texting my wife for 2 years. The man who fathered the child I've been caring for. I deserve that much. She knows I'm right. After a long moment, she nods. I'll set it up. 2 days later, Connor J. sits in our living room, perched awkwardly on the edge of the couch where Emma and I have spent countless evenings watching movies, planning our future, discussing baby names that never included his. He's taller than I expected, with dark hair and a confidence that borders on arrogance. When he walked in, his eyes went immediately to the baby carrier where his son slept, not even acknowledging me until Emma forced introductions. Now he sits across from us, the physical embodiment of my wife's betrayal, and I can't deny what I see. The baby in the carrier is undeniably his. The shape of the nose, the curve of the forehead. It's like looking at a miniature version of the man I already despise. I want to be clear, Connor says, breaking the tense silence. I never intended for things to go this far with Emma. It just happened. Things don't just happen, I reply, my voice tight. Affairs are choices. Lying is a choice. Pressuring my wife to name our son your son after you was a choice. He has the decency to look uncomfortable about that. I know it was wrong to pressure Emma. I was in shock when she told me she was pregnant, and I reacted badly. Reacted badly? I repeat. You threatened to destroy our marriage unless she branded her child with your name. I wanted some connection, he admits, some acknowledgement that he was mine. I didn't think through what that would do to your family. Emma sits silently between us, tears streaming down her face. The baby Connor begins to stir in his carrier, making those little pre-crying noises that normally have me rushing to soothe him. But I stay rooted in my seat, watching as this stranger leans forward to look at his son. I want visitation rights, Connor says, his eyes still on the baby. I've already spoken to a lawyer. I have parental rights, and I intend to exercise them. You can't just walk in here and... Emma begins, but he cuts her off. I can, actually. DNA doesn't lie, Emma. That's my son. The baby starts crying in earnest now, his wails filling the room. Emma moves to pick him up, but Connor gets there first, lifting the child with surprising gentleness. Hey there, little guy, he murmurs, and the baby quiets almost immediately, staring up at this stranger with curious eyes. The same eyes that looked up at me when I first held him in the hospital, believing he was mine. I don't want to make this difficult, Connor says, cradling the baby against his chest, but I will fight for my rights if I have to. I'd rather we work something out amicably. I watch this man hold the child I thought was mine and feel something break inside me. Not just my heart, but my entire understanding of what my life was supposed to be. Emma turns to me, her face streaked with tears. Please, she whispers. I know I've ruined everything, but I love you. I love our family. We can get through this. Our family. The words ring hollow now. I look at Emma, at Connor, at the baby who bears his name in more ways than one. The betrayal feels insurmountable, a chasm too wide to bridge. I need time, I say finally, standing up. This is too much. I walk out of the living room, past the nursery with its blue walls and star decals, into the guest room that's become my refuge. Behind me, I hear Emma's sobs and Connor's quiet voice as he continues to soothe the baby. My son, but not my son. My wife, but a stranger. My life, unraveling thread by thread, leaving me wondering if anything was ever truly mine to begin with. I meet with a lawyer the following Thursday. Her office is in a converted Victorian house downtown, with creaking hardwood floors and tall windows that let in too much sunlight for the conversation we're having. Patricia Mendez specializes in family law and doesn't sugarcoat anything as she reviews my situation. Legally speaking, you have no parental rights to this child, she says, shuffling through the paternity test results I brought. You're not biologically related, and you're not on the birth certificate. But I've been raising him, I argue, the words sounding hollow even to me. For almost a month now. Patricia gives me a sympathetic look. A month isn't long in legal terms. If you want to pursue any kind of custody arrangement, you'd need to formally adopt Connor, which would require the biological father's consent. The name still stings when I hear it. Connor, the daily reminder of my wife's betrayal. And if he doesn't consent, then you have no legal standing. I'm sorry. I leave her office with a folder of information about adoption, custody arrangements, and divorce proceedings. The last one feels inevitable now, though I haven't said the word out loud yet. When I get home, Emma is packing a suitcase. Connor, the baby, not the man, is asleep in his bassinet nearby. What are you doing? I ask, dropping my keys on the counter. My sister said I could stay with her for a while, Emma says without looking up. I thought maybe you need some space to figure things out. You're taking him? I nod toward the bassinet. Emma finally meets my eyes. I didn't think you'd want. I've been caring for him since he was born, I interrupt. Just because I found out he's not biologically mine doesn't mean I stopped caring about him. Her face crumples. I don't know what to do here. I'm trying to give you what you need. What I needed was honesty from the beginning, I say, but we're past that now. She sits on the edge of the bed, hands trembling. Connor, she stops, clarifying. Connor J is filing for partial custody. His lawyer sent over documents yesterday. Of course he is. The man who named my son is now trying to claim him legally. I should have expected this, but it still feels like a punch to the gut. What are you going to do, I ask. Fight for full custody, she says immediately. He was never supposed to be in the picture. This was never the plan. I laugh, a harsh sound that makes her flinch. What exactly was the plan, Emma? To let me raise another man's child without ever knowing? To have me look at Connor every day and see a name that meant nothing to me but everything to you? She has no answer for that. 2 days later, Emma moves out with the baby. The house feels impossibly empty without them. I wander from room to room, haunted by the ghost of what I thought my life was going to be. The nursery is the worst, the blue walls and star decals mocking me with their cheerfulness. I close the door and don't open it again. I throw myself into work, staying late at the office, taking on extra projects. My colleagues notice the change but don't ask questions. I'm grateful for their silence. 3 weeks pass before I get a text from Emma. Connor has been fussy. He misses you. It's manipulative, using the baby to reach out. But it works. I miss him too, in a way that defies logic. He's not mine, was never mine, but I still wake up reaching for the baby monitor that isn't there anymore. I could bring him by, she suggests when I don't immediately respond, just for a visit. I stare at the message for a long time before typing, okay. They arrive on a Sunday afternoon. Emma looks exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Connor, almost 2 months old now, is bigger than I remember, more alert. When Emma places him in my arms, he stares up at me with wide eyes that hold no recognition. He's growing so fast, I say, surprised by the emotion in my voice. He's starting to smile, Emma says, hovering nearby. Real smiles, not just gas. As if on cue, Connor's mouth twitches upward. Something breaks open inside me, some wall I'd carefully constructed over the past weeks. I hold him closer, inhaling that baby smell that somehow still feels like home. How's it going with everything? I ask, not wanting to say his name. Emma sighs. Connor J gets supervised visits twice a week. His lawyer is pushing for overnight stays once Connor is a little older. I nod, trying to imagine this child shuttled between 3 different homes, growing up with the complicated knowledge that the man who raised him isn't his biological father. And us? I ask, finally looking at Emma. What happens with us? She sits beside me on the couch, careful to leave space between us. I've been seeing a therapist, she says, trying to understand why I did what I did, why I lied for so long. And I know I can't undo what I've done, but I want to be honest, moving forward, completely honest, about everything. She takes a deep breath. I love you. I never stopped loving you. What happened with Connor J wasn't about love, it was about feeling seen during a time when I felt invisible in our marriage. I look down at the baby in my arms, at his tiny fingers wrapped around my thumb. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. I know, she whispers, but I'm hoping we can at least try, for his sake, if nothing else. 2 months later, we're sitting in a therapist's office. Dr. Lawson has been working with us weekly, helping us navigate the wreckage of our marriage. Emma has moved back home, but we sleep in separate rooms. We're co-parenting Connor, establishing a routine that works for all of us. What I'm hearing, Dr. Lawson says in today's session, is that you both want to rebuild, but trust remains the biggest obstacle. Emma nods. I know it will take time. I'm prepared for that. I look at her, really look at her, for what feels like the first time in months. I want to believe we can get past this, I admit, but every time I look at Connor, I'm reminded of what happened. His name alone is a constant reminder. Have you considered legally changing his name? Dr. Lawson asks. Emma and I exchange glances. We've discussed this privately but haven't reached a decision. Connor J would never agree to it, Emma says, and legally, we'd need his consent. But we could use a different name at home. I suggest a nickname that's just ours. It's a small step, but it feels like the first constructive thing we've done together in months. The custody battle drags on through the summer and into fall. Connor J fights for his parental rights while Emma and I slowly rebuild what we can of our relationship. There are setbacks nights when the anger overwhelms me, days when Emma retreats into guilt and shame. But there are good moments too, increasingly so. The first time Connor, who we now call CJ at home, reaches for me instead of Emma when he's upset. The evening we manage to have dinner together and actually laugh about something unrelated to the baby. The morning I wake up and realize I've gone a whole day without thinking about the affair. By Connor's first birthday in March, we've settled into a new normal. Connor J has court-mandated visitation every other weekend. Emma and I have moved back into the same bedroom, though intimacy is still something we're working toward. And I've officially adopted Connor James Walsh, making me his legal father regardless of biology. The adoption ceremony is small, just us, the judge, and our immediate families. Emma cries when the judge pronounces me, Connor's legal father. I hold our son because he is our son now, in every way that matters, and feel a sense of peace I never thought I'd find again. Later that night, after we've put Connor to bed, Emma finds me standing in the nursery, looking at the stars we painted on the ceiling so long ago. Thank you, she says quietly, standing in the doorway. For loving him, for loving us, even when I gave you every reason not to. I turn to look at her, this woman I've known for years and am somehow still getting to know. I realize something. I tell her, fatherhood isn't about DNA. It's about showing up. It's about choosing to love someone even when it's hard. Emma steps closer, tentatively taking my hand. Are we going to be okay? She asks, the question she's been afraid to voice for months. I look down at our intertwined fingers, then back at the crib where our son sleeps peacefully. We already are, I say, and for the first time in a long time I believe it.